All right, so welcome everyone. I think we can start. Welcome to the very first Phoenix Talks. It's great to have you all. And well, I'm here with Jennifer Gaspar, co-founder and president of the board of Project Phoenix, and Mehmet Ercan, anthropologist and filmmaker, and someone who has recently survived coronavirus and is one of the first and only people you might know who can tell us more about it. It certainly is for me. So very happy to have you all. And today we're going to talk about the overlap of something like coronavirus and the migrant community and the impact as it had on migrants and migrant communities in Europe. And Mehmet is originally from Turkey, living in Berlin now for many years already. But he would like to tell us a little bit more about, what his experiences has been, and hopefully you will have some questions for him at the end as well. So, first of all, Mehmet, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience and how you first realized that you had actually, in fact, been infected with coronavirus, and how that happened, just.
Hi everyone, also from my side. I am a filmmaker anthropologist based in Berlin, and it looks like I am one of the very early ones who had this coronavirus in Berlin. Maybe we are all from different corners of the world. Maybe you know by now that Germany is a very extreme case on the other side, on the other level, because we have many cases, corona cases, positive cases, but we have, like in Germany, we are the lucky ones to say, compared to many other Western countries, the death rate is much lower than compared to USA or Italy or Spain. And by me, it was, I still don't know what happened. I can't really talk because sometimes I realize that I am actually one of those cases that was lucky to recover. But most of the time I forget also. Every day when I check the numbers, and I come to realize that I am one of those in this list. I am one of those numbers. My family has been affected. I realize that yes, actually it was something very big that I survived. But most of the times, it's been already like 2 weeks. I forget it very easily at the same time. So please come with a bit more specific questions, because this experience has been huge. I need a bit more specific questions about it. I have many things to tell, and because I am also I am joyful and I came back to life in that sense, I need a bit more specific questions. Otherwise, I can just talk for hours.
Misha, would you like me to weigh in? Mehmet, I'm wondering if you have any sense of where you contracted the virus, or what were the first indications? How did you know that you were sick?
Well, yes, I have some ideas, but no one can be 100% sure. But for me, the place where I got the virus is one of these tech events, technology-related events. And because, we were in a very small space, with more than 500 really young people, just like any startup event. And they have been of course, to the rector clubs of Berlin, probably, a week ago or something like that. So it was like a very suitable place for the virus to, get contacted with. But still, I still give 10% of the chance to stuff like, transport vehicles, buses, subways and stuff like that. And the first symptoms was fever. I would say fever. I had fever of I don't know, 38 degrees, 39 degrees. And funnily enough, because you don't know if you have the virus or not, me and my wife, we were afraid to go to the doctor actually. to go to the dock, and there can be viruses, there can be patients, and funnily enough, my wife had to clean all the house from the very top to the very bottom with bleach and water and everything. And at the very end, very end, it was even a bit late, I got to know that I was the one who was dangerous for the other patients and not vice versa.
And when was this event, or when were these events when you think maybe you contracted it? How was it in terms of timing from when things started to shut down in Germany, because you're in Berlin, from the time that things started to shut down and to the time that you realized you were sick? Was it before, after, during all of the shutdown?
It was something like 10 days before the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
I am just opening my calendar so I can talk, a bit more with the numbers. So on the 13th of March, which is, by the way, Friday, it looks like I got the first symptoms, because I didn't feel like I'm a member of a big co-working space with, like, I don't know, 2,000 members maybe. I used to be a member. I'm not anymore. And I went to the event in the same place. So it looks like a week before that, I already had the virus, but it needs some time to make a peak so that, you feel sick. So what happened is, on the 13th, I was already in bed, feeling a bit dizzy, but, we don't know if it's a virus or it's the microbes or anything. So I was already in the bed, and my wife started taking care of me. It was 13th of March. And because of the fear of coronavirus, I didn't go to the doctor. I said, maybe, I take some pills like paracetamol, and it will, it's just a small fever.
Right.
Because I didn't have any coughs or anything. So I had to wait till the next Wednesday, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. My wife said, okay, now, this fever has been going on for like 6 days. Let's go to the doctor's place. So we went to the praxis of the doctor, and there, 1 week later, it will get crazy. But at that time, it was like the 18th of March. There was no extra precautions. They just gave me a very, very normal mask. Mm-hmm. And then they looked at my throat and they said, okay, you have pharyngitis. So for that, you can get antibiotics for 10 days and you will be okay. That was like the first diagnosis, which happens to be false afterwards. So what happened is, I got the antibiotics, and we were really, careful about the practice and everything, trying to run away from all the people. And then we went back home, and I took 5 days of antibiotics. At one point, the fever was gone, mm-hmm. but it made a peak of 40 degrees the next Monday. So after taking 5 days of antibiotics, I had to revisit my doctor, and there suddenly it was all crazy, because even the praxis itself, it was adapted to the coronavirus. It was not mm-hmm. the same place I visited 5 days ago. There were like full masks, not these very cheap ones, and the doc told me to go into a room which was something like, I don't know, 10 square meters. Me and my wife waiting mm-hmm. for the doc. We were sensing that it is now another place. It's completely different. And he came into the room just like an astronaut, full costume and everything. And he was saying all the time to my wife, sit down, it can be that you are spreading coronavirus. But the thing with the virus and the test is, it takes 3 days to, mm-hmm. To get the test. So still no one can say if I had corona or not. He gave me the test. Till here he had to, put the stick down, and also through my nostrils. And he did the same thing to my wife. And I was like saying, come on, don't exaggerate. I am taking the antibiotics. I had, I have pharyngitis. I was expecting the doc to tell me, drink more liquid, more water, and it will be fine. And at one point, he also measures the oxygen in the blood, in the oxygen level in the blood, with a very, cheap, very standard equipment. It's called oximeter.
Mm-hmm.
And there I saw that I got like 90 out of 100. And I was saying, okay, look, I am okay. And then he told me that, 90 is the limit. It is, if you go below 90, you have to be hospitalized. It's very serious. And then I felt dizzy and said, I have to lie down. Mm. So I was expecting that, he would say stuff like, drink this tea, drink, water, and that will be fine. He said, probably you have corona.
And from there, did you have to go straight to the hospital, or did you go home? Did you have contact with other people?
Yeah. There I realized how serious the stuff is. I said, I can walk home and then I can think about it. And he said, no, you are not going anywhere. Mm. So he called the ambulance. We have waited for the ambulance like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I don't know. And then another guy, again in an astronaut costume, came inside. And I was saying, what's going on? Where do I have to go? And he said, you cannot. So basically, if you have coronavirus, you cannot take the taxi. You cannot take the subway. You cannot take the bus. So the ambulance came. And the doctor said to his colleague, what he's suspecting and all. But it is still a, suspicion, basically, because the test takes like 3 days.
Right. So
they took me to the ambulance. I had to say goodbye to my wife. And she was crying like hell because she didn't have any symptoms. The doc said, okay, you will go to home directly. You will close the door and open it in 14 days again. In between, you are not allowed to go outside, do the shopping or stuff like that. So there, the story got divided into two. Me and my wife. My wife all the time at home and me being hospitalized. That's how it all started.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience once you got to the hospital? And I know that we want to talk about migration with this discussion and with all of our discussions. And can you talk a little bit about your experience in the hospital, some of the technical things, but then why you think your experience was different than one of a native German speaker, let's say? What are the specifics for migrants when they find that they have coronavirus?
But even before coming to the hospital, like when they picked you up from home and put you in the ambulance, and the way that they communicated to you what was going to happen next, do you feel that there was a difference there as well?
It's hard to say if the approach is different, but remember that before that, my wife, she went to school in Germany. She came at the age of 13 or 14. So she raised up going to German schools, even before university. And I came to Germany at the age of 25. So that's a big difference. So she speaks better than, many German. And she's like a native, let's call it that way. And for me, because of the, migration history of all the other Turkish community, I always felt a bit of distance to Germans at the same time. So we have a very big Turkish Kurdish community that that all are somehow Turkophone, speak Turkish. We have something like 250,000 people only in Berlin that speak Turkish. We have a very big community. So for me, it was never like, do I have German friends? Yes and no. My community is like the Turkish community. And for her, she went to the best schools of Germany and then to university. And remember that till the time we got separated, she was always with me and she was doing all the bureaucratic works also at the doctor for me. So once we got separated, we didn't know how to do, what to do, how to start. And I took the ambulance and finally there was something like an oxygen mask. So I could get the oxygen needed. And I was taken to the hospital. From there, actually, I already encountered some other migrants. Because, for example, in the waiting room, there was an old guy, which, you know, because I was talking to my wife on the phone, Turkish, he said to me, the old guy said to me, you know, hopefully, you know, everything will be okay again in Turkish. And I realized that because the hospital is in Kreuzberg, in the, you know, Turkish district, more or less, of Berlin, all the other patients that were waiting with me, they also could speak Turkish. And that hospital that I was taken to, you know, has many stories with migrants and Turkish migrants and Kurdish migrants. So even in the emergency department, most of the patients, they were Turkish. But the medical staff, they were like really German, very German indeed. So coming back to your question, maybe, you know, some anecdotes can help about my experience. One thing that happened is I realized that in the emergency department, everyone, you know, all the medical staff, they were in hurry all the time. They were telling me something, you know, the doctor and the others, but they had to tell it very quickly and in German. They didn't have time for translation. They didn't have time to, you know, ask me, did you understand anything? I was trying to pick up some words, some terms, but I was also like, you know, I had like 40 degrees fever. You know, I was not the fittest in my fittest mode. So at one point it was too much. Everything was too much. I said, you know, because till then I was just sitting down and they were trying to get blood out of my veins, which, you know, somehow they couldn't get. And the reason was I didn't have enough liquid inside me, yeah, because of the fever. Once they tried to like get some blood out of my vein, it was not coming out. They had to try 6 times. 6 times. And on the 5th one or 6th one, I said, that's enough. It's not coming out. Please listen to me. You know, I need something like an infusion. Plus, I have to lie down. Otherwise, my body is in panic modus. I told all of this in German, trying to tell them that I need to rest a bit and I need infusion. Finally, you know, another staff member came in and said, okay, I understand the problem. You are right. You know, you need to drink water, infusion, and you have to rest down. Then they could get the blood out of me.
How did you find communication with the doctors? Was it, you know, were you able to communicate? I know that you speak some German, but I'm really trying to get at what are the challenges for migrants in being assisted when they have coronavirus?
So
sorry, can I just, because that's really the crux of the matter, of course, you know, is there a difference? Do you feel there's a difference between the migrant community as such? Are they more vulnerable also to this crisis? Not just in economic sense, but actually in what you've lived? Because I would imagine that if a German speaker or you know, someone who's very already experienced with how the local system works, needs assistance and needs medical assistance, it's easier for them to get that. Do you feel that there is that the migrant community is more vulnerable, or is it really not the case?
You know, here I have to jump to my anthropologist identity, I would say, and filmmaker identity. You know, my master thesis was about Turkish community in Berlin and their relationship to Berlin Wall. So my experience is, even someone like me who is doing a Ph.D. at the German university and, you know, who has went to, you know, university and got the education and has been living since 15 years, yes, I think the migrant community is a bit more vulnerable compared to German community. And the first big barrier is language barrier. Because, you know, even if I speak German, also fluently I speak German, I don't have this, you know, needed vocabulary for the hospital unit. So just like you know, say it like German A1 level, blah, blah book. We don't have the hospital unit. We never learn it until we need it. So you just come to, to this position you are getting hospitalized, and then you realize, okay, this is completely another vocabulary. I have to learn it from the very beginning. And, you just say, how will you say, if you have some problems with your 𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀, someone new just attended. How will you say, stuff that you can say in English or in Turkish, in your mother tongue? Suddenly that becomes problematic. Or stuff like, urine, or stuff like, is it okay with my value, with the values that, with the urine I just gave? It's not so easy to ask. You have to look for the words in dictionary. You have to learn this stuff. And imagine that in the corona case, most of the people who are hospitalized, they are over 65 years old. Mm-hmm. So for them, it's even older. It's even tougher because, for them, they don't even speak the language that good. So that's why actually, with the mentor program that we are doing together with Michael, we came up with this idea to give each migrant a supervisor who speaks both language fluently.
Great. Could you?
I actually forgot to mention that. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah.
But Mehmet and I are participating in a course called Migrant Entrepreneurship Support, or part of the Migrant Entrepreneurship Academy. In fact, we are constantly talking about best ways to serve our community and clients and fellows and the people that we work with. And one day, we were all in the room, online, but still in the room, and Mehmet wasn't there, and we were all like, where is he? Why is he not attending? And we're not thinking about anything, and it turned out that he didn't attend because he had coronavirus, and we only found out weeks later. And this is actually something that I find particularly worrying, is that even though we are so connected and always talking to each other, and even though we expected him to be there, we had no idea what was happening with him, and probably if we had written him, he wouldn't have been able to answer either. But that is something that is also very common, I feel, in the migrant community, especially in the vulnerable migrant community, refugees and asylum seekers. For example, in Cyprus, where we're working, we don't know sometimes if one of our one of the people we work with or their friends or family are affected by this, because they're just shut off from the outside world. So anyway, yeah, just mentoring and coaching. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mehmet, I wanted to ask, well, I hope that you'll talk a little bit. We have a question here asking what you think would be useful to provide for other people. And I know that you have an idea and you want to talk about it. But before you do that, I'm wondering if you could also talk a little bit about why you think migrant communities are particularly vulnerable to contracting coronavirus. What are their lives? How are their lives different that make them more vulnerable?
Okay, that is a question that maybe we all have to ask ourselves. I don't think I can just talk for this big, huge migrant community on my own. I don't feel I have the authority for that.
Of course.
But I have some observations, of course. I'm a part of that community, at the edge of it somehow, between the very German native community maybe, plus this migration story. I am somewhere in between, so I can go into both directions. Yeah, I have this position where I am doing the PhD at a German university, but at the same time, where I live, where I do my shopping, it's all like migration. It has, stories of migration, many stories of migration. One thing is, of course, it's cultural. It's not about, only being, when people talk about migration, most of the time, they say that, European Union is a big union. They tell this very positive story, which is just at that moment, at the moment we are living in, is proven that it's actually not that positive. It's actually not that united. So I think of like also Italians living in Berlin as migrants, basically. Okay, so they are not really part of the big European Union project, but just like we've seen, at the very first danger, they just close and turn to themselves and they close the borders. So for me, Italians living in Berlin, if they get hospitalized, they have the same problems.
Sure.
Having a European Union passport doesn't really mean anything in that crisis moment. So what happens is, the South cultures, they depend on, communities, they depend on each other. They are, much more touch oriented. So in that case, coming together and everything, all this social distancing thing, they have to learn from the very beginning. But if you look at, most of the time what happens with the northern countries is they already have it in their, cultural traits. So for them, it's a bit maybe easier to adapt. But this is all hypothesis. I have nothing to prove. I don't have any qualitative data at that, quantitative data at that point. I just have my observations. What we can do, what I can offer to you is that is also connected to the solution. I am working on, I have been working on this idea even after I learned that I was corona positive. I started to think about solutions. What can we do? Because I think, what Misha and you are doing is already being part of the solution. What we can do is we can scale it up. Yeah. I have like a 21 slides on PDF. I can share it with you so that you have an idea of what it is like to be being in a hospital in Germany with a COVID-19 positive case. So if you wish, I will just share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped sharing it because on Facebook Live, it only shows your screen and only very small videos. So when we're talking, I thought it would be better. But now you can go.
But we're recording this. It's okay. We're still recording this. So.
What do you see at your screen at the moment? Do you see my PDF?
Yes, I see your
first. Yes.
Okay. So here is my LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is already my call to action at that point. And it is a story by me, Mehmet Ercan, and COVID-19, because without the virus, this story wouldn't happen. And it is called I Am the Danger. But, if you look at my face, I'm not a bad guy, but I just happen to be the bad guy of the story. This is me. Just, after the emergency department, they took me to the intensive station. This is me who just got into the hospital, to the intensive station. And these things you will see are for oxygen mask, these two. So then what happened is, I got introduced to my doctor the next day, and she told me that I have to drink lots of water, and lots of it. It's like minimum 3 liters a day. And this is me with my oxygen mask finally that they brought in. And because I was at the same time also bored, I started to make photos of the things, around the room. Because one thing you have to know, and you will get to know, is when you are a COVID-19 patient, the intensive station doesn't really look so intensive because people are afraid to enter your room. What happened is I was talking most of the time to my wife, Elif, and I was making photos or videos. This is a special moment for me because after talking to my wife and noting everything down, she found a friend of us who would bring me the necessary things to stay in the hospital for a week, and stuff like, many t-shirts with an Istanbul one, and then also stuff like, comb and everything. But also to, one of the things with the corona patients is, not me maybe, because I wasn't coughing at all, but all my neighbors, they were coughing all the time. So around the clock.
Right.
And it made me, you know, hard. It made for me the life a bit harder because I couldn't sleep in the night. So this is the beautiful view from my room. And the funny thing is, you know, this is where people live, but actually historically this building belongs to the hospital that I am staying in. And I was dreaming of living in one of these flats one day, but it looks like, you know, the message got shifted a bit, the location got shifted a bit, so I didn't live in that building blocks, but in the hospital for 1 week. And as you see, there is all this beautiful garden, people, you know, doing sport, walking around. And because I am corona patient, I was not allowed to leave the room. I had to stay in this 16 square meter for 1 week. And people were just, you know, enjoying the sun on the banks. What I could do was I was only taking pictures of them. So this is my life, how it looks like, you know, as a corona patient in the hospital. So they listened to my lungs, and blood pressure was also very important. And this is one of the messages of all this talk. This is called oximeter. This is something like 20 euros worth vehicle that everyone needs who is, you know, at home at the moment and who is listening to this talk, you know, because this is how my doctor understood that I have coronavirus at the first place. Because what it does is it measures the level of your oxygen in the blood from the very finger. It doesn't bite. You don't need a blood or anything. If this number is 90 or below, it is, you know, it is a signal for corona, because it means that the lungs don't have the capacity anymore. It's getting less and less. This is why I got hospitalized at the first place, thanks to this very small, little, cheap device. Get it, you know, get one and, you know, put it in a safe place in the house. It will always be needed. So this is one of the angels, I call them. So she was, you know, just measuring my blood pressure. So what you have to know is, you know, even with the full costume, the medical staff, they have something like 2 to 3 minutes once they enter my room, because afterwards it's becoming risky for them. They can get the virus. Yeah. So that's why, you know, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, plus for, you know, making the place a bit more clean, plus the doctor visit, 5 times a day, there was another human being in the room for up to like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That makes something like 10 to 15 minutes. So I was all alone in a 16 square meter room for 23 hours and 45 minutes.
Mehmet, how did the doctors and nurses communicate with you? Did they do that within the 2 minutes that they were in the room, or was there another way?
No, that was more or less all the way. Other than that, the only communication tool is either you push the panic button, then they have to enter, and they say that it is a problem. But because I was basically fit most of the time, I didn't want to, you know, push the panic button and make it a big, you know, big theater. I was using the telephone. So as you see, one of the biggest issues is they have to get ready before they get into the room, even if you push the panic button. So they need something like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to put the costume on with the gloves and everything. So what happens, what is left behind is, as a communication tool, is the telephone. And that one, you have to dial a big, like a number, just like you are calling anyone else. So it's not one button that you push and there they are. And from the very beginning, you have to say, hi, this is Ercan calling. So because they don't see which room is calling. So this is like a, you know, a big design failure, I would say, in the health system. I don't want to, you know, say anyone is guilty. Probably if someone is guilty, it's us, people like Michael, you or me. because we never, we were never interested in the health system. We were never interested that we were interested about stuff like Bitcoin, stuff like that, but never interested in the health system. So it's our failure. People like us who got, trained on that, but they never cared about the health system at the first place. So
I think, also just because we do have a question also from the audience, so I don't want to lose that that valuable question, and that's also something. Just you don't have to answer it right now if you're getting to that.
Sure.
But it's actually a question that is also on our mind and that we started to talk about a little bit. And it's Caroline who is asking this. She's asking, what do you think would be useful to provide to other people, to other folks in your situation? Especially when it comes to communication. And when you just mentioned about the telephone, I think that's something particularly interesting, because when you meet someone face to face, when a doctor is in the room, you can point at things, you can say it hurts here, or, what can I do? Even when you don't speak the language. But when it's purely through audio communication, it must be very difficult for someone who doesn't speak the language, or doesn't speak the language very well, as you said yourself in a conversation we had before about medical terms or explaining the pain or the details in that. And I remember you saying something to me as well before, where you said that a doctor that who only speaks German or maybe some English had a lot of difficulties in communicating with some of the patients, and was asking you as well, for a way to improve this and help her communicate better with patients. So I mean, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but I think this is a very important thing that we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
What are the solutions? What do you have in mind? How can we mentor, coach? You told me that you're mentoring people or coaching people about that have coronavirus. Can you tell us a little bit about your solution and what you want to do with this as well?
Okay, now I have to combine it with my story. Let's see. We will go there. I have the question. So this is why I am calling all this story I am the danger. This is the rubbish bin they put in my room because I am COVID-19 patient. And they told me, even though there are other rubbish bins in the room, they told me that this is the one I have to use, as if I am radioactive. Yeah. So after they visit me, they take out all the stuff, put it in this rubbish bin, and then they go out, because they also don't want the viruses to leave the room. Yeah. So this, we will come back to it. Just remind me, this is something like an alternative medication, and you have to sign extra for this to get this pill with lots of side effects. Coming back to your question, that's why I'm trying to share the pain points of the patients at the moment, because maybe someone else will come with a better idea. The only thing I realized is why don't we have something like Skype or Zoom with the doctors and with the other medical staff? I mean, we don't have to pay anything for that. We can use WhatsApp. Why don't we have WhatsApp? Because the thing with the corona patients is, because the virus gets into the lungs, and then you have something like an infection, the voice level drops down. So when I was hospitalized, I was talking something like, "Michael, are you okay?" This was the volume of my voice. And with that voice, I have to communicate on the telephone, even in the intensive station. So come on, that's crazy. We can do better than that. We don't need any new technology. We already have the technologies. The only thing we have to, overcome the barrier is this stuff okay, the patient has rights, the doctor has rights. We don't want to, share. We have the GDPR, stuff like that. I think we have to come up with a better regulation which allows it for the patients who want to share the video, share the, all these other types of communication, because otherwise the patients are suffering. They are not getting the best treatment they can get with the technology we already have. It's very easy. you know, something like an iPad with some icons could have already. Because what can you need? You know, the things that you need is already limited there. You need water. Okay, something like an icon of water. I need water to this room 25, room 25. What else can you need? You know, you can be hungry. You need some food. Then you need some medication. Maybe then you need the doctor, stuff like that. Something like a visual vocabulary, some icons, and then also the video chat ability or chat ability. Anything other than telephone is better than telephone, because the people, they have problems with their lungs. They don't have the breath. They don't have the energy. They cannot talk on the phone. Especially they cannot talk on the phone and say, because the medical staff is changing so quickly, they have their shifts. You have to tell from the very beginning, you know, what's wrong with you. Very small ideas plus this, you know, this courage to change some stuff can change lots of things. That is the solution I came up with. That's what I'm trying to share with other people, but other people can come up with even more complex technologies and solutions. I am also welcome to them.
I guess one of the challenges we have is time, right? This
Yeah.
hopefully that this is something that we will be able to tackle. I mean, having a vaccination and treatment for coronavirus sooner rather than later. But until then, there are lots of people who are going to suffer. And I guess the question is how do you think, what ideas do you have for getting this done quickly? Do you have any sense of who you'd like to invite to join in this effort? Who, any major corporations? Do you have a sense of how quickly you can get something off the ground, and what would that take?
Let's go back to the slides for a moment. This is, you know, at one point, if you are in the hospital and if you are healthy as I am or fit as I am, this is one of the possibilities that will come you as an option. So this is a pill actually for malaria, and it has been used for the last 50 years. It has side effect of all the possible things you can think of. So at one point, my doc came to me because I was curious and I was reading all the articles in New York Times and stuff like that. I said, you know, in US and in France, they are using this medication for corona. Do you have something similar? And she told me that, you know, if I sign a paper, I can get this medication because I am fit enough. Because if you are not fit enough, if the index, they have something like an index, if you get a score, you know, greater than 6, you cannot take this pill. And I got only like something like 1 in this index. I was proposed to get this medication. What it does is, it did actually, you know, it was a medication that somehow brought my voice back, but with also side effects. What happened is, at the first one, I didn't feel my face. At the second one, I didn't feel my face, plus I get allergy all over my place. So I had to quit the medication after the second one. So this is something that is very, you know, if you read the forums, you can see that this medication brings some hope, but with lots of side effects. It's called, for the sake of recording, I will try to pronounce it. It's called 𝗲𝗲𝗃. And as you see, it's like 200 milligrams. And here you can see the paper I had to sign to get the medication. The thing that is problematic is the medical staff who brought me the medication, she didn't know that this was that, you know, that pill that everyone is talking about. She told me that, you know, I brought your lunch and here's your antibiotics. And I had to tell to her, no, it's not antibiotics, it's this pill, you know, that I had to sign a paper with. And I told her to check on me now and then, because it has many side effects, you know, up to hallucination and even up to stop of heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So it's like serious stuff going on there. And she was, you know, she was bringing me, introducing me the pill and saying like, this is antibiotics. And I had to say, no, you know, I have to correct it. It's not antibiotics, it's this thing. So after the pill, I also had to, talk to my sister because she was assisting me all the time, also via WhatsApp and Skype and all the possible technologies. And this was like, this was one of my wishes from my wife. It said like a Turkish biscuit that I attached with my childhood. So that makes me happy somehow. And then I came up with this I am the danger stuff. So I started to make more photos. At the very end, I made something like 1,000 photos of my experience. I was thinking like, okay, one day maybe, the hospital will go back to its, happy days, and we will have something like an exhibition at the hospital where I can call my doctor and say, I am the danger.
Mehmet, what's next then? What for your project? What are you going to wake up and do tomorrow or the next day to get this off the ground? And what kind of help do you need?
So since days, I am actually posting to all the Bill Gates posts. I'm trying to reach him because he is like nowadays for Corona, he is like the person to talk to, but it's not very easy. I have tried all my best to reach him because he has like all the philanthropy funds are somehow flowing through his, his foundation, Melinda and Gates Bill Foundation, but I couldn't reach him. The second best name would be Angela Merkel. I couldn't reach her also. But in Turkey, it's a bit different. I could, for example, there's a filmmaker who has like a very successful YouTube channel and YouTube TV even. I could reach him very easily because he also has like coronavirus. He also has COVID-19 positive. Actually, when I tried to reach him, he reached at me back and he said, I need your consulting. Yeah, because
what is the consulting? What is it that you want to consult? So let's go back. I mean, it's great if we can talk to Bill Gates and get lots of money for this, but what is it that you want to do? What is the practical terms? What is it that you want to do? Like you were mentioning earlier that you're mentoring and coaching coronavirus patients, but what is it that you feel that you can do, and specifically, especially for the migrant community in Germany or in Berlin? What is the what are some of the solutions that you talked about? Because we talked about this the other day, and you had some really good ideas. So that's where we want to hear as well.
Sure. First of all, we have to connect. The first solution is we have to connect just like we are doing now. Because if you are a single person and you have issues with your neighbors, when they need you or when you need them, you won't be able to connect. It will be too late. So connect now. Connect with your friends, connect with your relatives, connect with your neighbors. I think, the first part of the solution to many problems, not only this corona stuff, connect. Secondly, you need a plan. Okay? For example, for Michael, you have a baby, you have a wife, you have to make a plan. If you get contacted to the virus, what is your plan? You have to think about it. If the wife gets the virus, what is the plan? If the baby gets the virus, what is the plan? You need different plans, different scenarios, saying like, okay, if I get the virus, I have another place where I can be for the next 14 days isolated. Where is the nearest hospital? How can I go there? Stuff like that. Other than that, you need someone. If you are a migrant, you need someone previously planned. If you get hospitalized and if you have the language barrier, who would be your angel?
What's your plan for this project that you were talking about? Not my plan, your plan. What is
will
your
you create
plan?
something? Will you create something to help facilitate for other people who contract the virus, other people who have who face a language barrier? We were talking before about this idea of having a call center or using other technologies. Do you have a clear idea of how to move forward?
No, I don't. But we can all together figure it out. That's what I am saying. We need each other. I cannot create a new call center for that. But I can tell my story. I can tell it to Misha. Then it can be something like a talk like this. So you see that it's scaling up. What we need is very obvious. We need a call center just like Netflix, Facebook, YouTube, everyone has. We need a call center. But for that, if I try to start it up now, it will be too late. I need months to, build on the stuff. But if I tell my story, if you tell me my story even further and add your perspective on it, maybe what we can do is at one point we can reach a person who already has a call center and who already wants to help migrants and help corona patients. And then we can say, let's design it this way. So instead of, asking for Netflix customers, we can ask for corona patients. Do you need our help? I think that is much more realistic and scalable than me, starting with a call center from the very beginning, because I don't have the infrastructure for that. But what I can do, I can tell my story. Tell me.
For example, one of the things that we've been working on, I mean, it's a very small project, but in Cyprus, one of our fellows, Justine, who's a refugee, a migrant from Cameroon, she had the initiative and the desire to make masks, reusable masks, that she would, distribute in her community and in the migrant community for free, because a lot of the migrants don't have access to this. And, so her initiative was, how can I help my community to do something? And so we're supporting her in making those masks, getting her the materials, making sure that she has the distribution. And that's just one little thing that I think we can do. Another thing that we're trying to help is to offer as a project, as an organization, as an access point, native speakers who can help people with medical questions, So we don't need a call center for that, but we can at least have one person who speaks French or maybe Arabic who can answer questions if people have them. So we don't need to necessarily have a very big call center or anything like that, but organizations and projects and individuals can help, I think, with this issue, provide native language information for people who don't speak, the local language. Yeah. And I think you were saying yourself that you have been already coaching people, mentoring people on these issues. And also through our program, the Migrant Entrepreneurship Academy, this is the things we're talking about, right? How can we create services or solutions for these kind of issues? And that goes beyond coronavirus, but coronavirus is something that is very acute and very now, something that we need to look at, as Jan said.
Yes. And so this is a typical case where you have to say yes and. So yes, the project is very important. We have to support her, the mask project. We have to even, work on my idea or my story, and we have to start now. At the same time, we have to think about scaling it up very fast, because if I put all my effort to, find the volunteers, stuff like that, with my resources, it will take too much time. We don't have time. If you look at this, this web page with 𝗏𝗏𝗵𝗵𝗲𝗏, each second we are talking, someone is dying. And this is the example I have to give all the time. I asked to my family, I came back to, we were very lucky. If I was to live in, not in Berlin, but in my land, Milano, probably I wouldn't get the treatment. I could die. So what I'm saying is, we have to scale. We have to think about the time. If I start with my resources at a very basic level, it takes months to where I reach. But maybe story is something that has this viral effect, that can get copied very fast. And even this recording is one of the possibilities I see as a 𝗶𝗏𝗵𝗺 guy. So we have to copy the stories, and then we have to link together and say, you know what, I know this guy, we can work together, we can collaborate, we can come together, and we can come up with a better plan, even a better plan. That's why I think, what you have started is very important. This Phoenix Talks is very important, and I'm looking forward to the other speakers also, to the other, episodes. But at the same time, at the individual level, as I said, you know, that is coming somehow organically, that people call me back and say, you know what, my husband also has COVID-19. Is it okay if I can, you know, introduce you to him and then you can consult? This is happening very organically. I am learning a lot from other cases also. They are learning from me. And, you know, I only say stuff like drink 3 liters of water every day. And you will be good in 2 weeks. Just be patient. In 2 weeks, you will be okay.
Well, we have a comment from Heike in the chat as well, saying that, you know, the solution is networking, or as a question, is the solution networking? And I think this is a very interesting topic. Of course, the solution is not only networking, but it is a great start. And I think using networks, not just any network, not just having 4,000 Facebook friends and sending a message out to everyone, but using networks efficiently and productively, and making sure that your network is the right network for this particular thing that you're trying to achieve. I think that's very important. So, for example, it's not just, and Heike says, is Google Translate not enough to get, you know, the message across? And I think that it can be in certain situations, but it's not just about the words or the language. It's about cultural differences. It's about communication. It's about being able to feel safe with that other person, and not being, you know, and sometimes when you're in a hospital and you're afraid of doctors because you've had a bad experience, or you're afraid of a policeman, or you're afraid of whatever situation you're in, and you don't feel comfortable talking to that person, having a network is incredibly important. Someone to call up, or someone to say, can you help me with this? Can you support me with this? And that is for coronavirus, but it's for everything. It's for entrepreneurship, it's for legal support, it's for therapy, it's for mental health, it's for all these things. And I think this is something why this talk is so interesting also for us, because it's about coronavirus and your experience right now, but this experience that you're having is a reality for so many people, not just in connection with coronavirus, but about being isolated or homeless or a refugee or having mental health issues and all these things. So all these things are connected one way or another, I feel. And that's why, you know, when something like this, like a crisis like this hits the migrant community, it's even more impactful, because people, you know, like refugees or are often alone already, are already isolated in their communities. And if something like this happens, they really have no one to reach out to. And that's why, you know, as Heike was asking, networks are so important. And we need to help to support these networks. It's not, the burden cannot be on the individual to build networks for themselves. It's great for us. I mean, we are able to do this maybe, but a lot of people are not, and the most vulnerable people are not. Jen?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think that this gives us all an opportunity to think about how we can be of service, and yeah, of course it's about building networks, but it's also about finding the best strategic way to use what we know and offer ourselves up as resources, and not necessarily offer ourselves up as resources to the entire potential world of coronavirus sufferers, but maybe more strategically in our communities, to hospitals, to let them know that, for example, Mehmet is a former coronavirus sufferer, and he speaks Turkish, and he is willing to assist in any way possible, but then go directly to the hospitals, go directly to the caregivers to say, if you need my assistance, then I can help. And I think that, of course, sharing your story and being public about it is really important, but being strategic and how you let people know that you're allowing yourself to be a resource for them is really important. And so for all of us to think about how, even after just this discussion, I can think, well, maybe if people knew that I knew that there was somebody who might be able to help, and it's just that domino effect. And so I just want to say thank you to Mehmet, and I want to say that your story is really compelling. It reminds all of us that, you know, it could be us, and you know, it's also very hopeful, because here you are talking to us after your hospitalization, after your experience, and the fact that you're using this now to try to be of service to others is very inspiring. So I want to thank you for that.
do I have like 2 more minutes?
Sure. I just wanted to, because Heike said one more thing, and then we'll close the questions because we'll have to wrap up, and Mehmet will get the last word. So yes, community, she says that the Turkish community is strong and often stronger, for example, than the German community, where a lot of elderly are sitting at home, you know, and don't have the access to this. So yes, of course. I mean, we're not saying that a migrant community has necessarily less of a network. There are different types of networks, and sometimes they're better and sometimes they're worse, and it depends on what it is. We're saying that, and this is what Mesaz is trying to say, is that it's not just about the migrant community. We are emphasizing the migrant community, but everyone can be affected by something like coronavirus, and it only has shown us even more how important networks are. So Heike, you're absolutely right. And some people within the Turkish community might not have the network, you know, Mehmet might have it. It really is something that we need to think about more about, that even in such an interconnected world where everyone could be connected, a lot of people fall outside of this, outside of these networks. And this is something that we can support. So now the final word to Mehmet, and then that's it. Let me just close up and say that this is the first of Project Phoenix Phoenix Talks. We hope to have these quite often. If you have anything that you want to talk about, you're welcome to send us a message and invite yourself, and we can set something up. If you have any tips, suggestions, advice, we're really open for this. In the first place, we're doing this for the community, for our audience. So if you have anything that we could improve or do different, or you know, please let us know. We'll be happy to hear. So Mehmet, thank you for joining us. Give you 2 minutes to wrap up, and then we want to thank everyone for joining us.
Okay, great. Well, I also have some thanks to, you know, say. And that's why I want to share one more time my screen. Do you see the 2 ladies on my screen? Okay. So I want to say thanks to my doctor, Kristin Kote. She is working at Urban Krankenhaus in Kreuzberg. And just before I was leaving the hospital, as a chance, for the first time, she just appeared at the background, and for the first time I could see her face, because she was always like this when she was talking to me. So I could see my doctor for the first time. This is a very special moment for me. And as I call her, she is my 𝗏𝗏𝗪𝗀. Yeah, she is protecting me. She is my angel. I want to say a big thanks to her. I think, you know, maybe 60% of the reason I could get such a treatment was because of her. And the next thing is, this is just before I was leaving. I was packing my stuff. And as you see, I have the same t-shirt, just like I did on that day. And this is the last slide I want to share again. Here you can see my LinkedIn. This is a list of thanks to the people, you know, who were in the very small circle, who had to, you know, suffer with me. So I have like a big thanks to my wife, of course, and also to all these nice people, nice institutions who have supported me. And thanks for having me. Misha, Jen, thanks for having me.
For coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us who's with us. We're really glad that you decided to join us and watch us either on Facebook or how else can they, no, just on Facebook. But thank you very much.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye.